let's end the conversation with the Game Awards.
Oh boy,
we like the Game Awards. I like the Game Awards. I don't know. Sometimes it's a waste of time. Sometimes it's cool. It happens every year. We're about to enter the 10th annual Game Awards this year, which is very exciting. And there's a big discussion right now, big conversation surrounding the ultimate prize, which is the Game of the Year prize. And they released their 6 nominees. We got Astrobot, we got Metaphor Refantasio, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Black Myth Wukong, Balatro, and the Game of the Hour, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, the problem is Elden Ring won Game of the Year like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's back in this category this year because it dropped this big DLC, the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. And from what I understand, I didn't play this game, but I did some research. It is a very sizable download. It is a very sizable piece of content that you can only access if you play a good chunk of Elden Ring anyway. There is big conversations about this as to whether it deserves to be here or not. Should DLC be included? Should it not? Is it fair? Did it take someone else's spot? It's a discussion. We're gonna have another discussion, I think, but I'll let you go first. What do you think of this? Like, just answer the question. Should this be here or should it not?
No, shouldn't be there.
God damn, we got it.
It shouldn't be there.
Judge.
If I release a movie, right? Let's call it Suicide Squad, right?
Oh Jesus! Okay.
And it gets and it wins Film of the Year. Not the Will Smith version. Who said that? Be nice, Chris.
Oh, come on.
Who said that? They filmed in your city. And then the next year or 2 years later, they release Suicide Squad. Same movie, but it's the director's cut. And there's an extra hour onto it, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets nominated again for Film of the Year.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly with me.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly with me.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same camp. My whole thinking behind it is similar, but it's more like people that are for this made an argument. When Breath of the Wild came out, it won Game of the Year in like 2017, right? Tears of the Kingdom came out. It was also nominated for Game of the Year. And when you look at them side by side, it looks like glorified DLC to Breath of the Wild. And I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's not. It's just not. It's its own game. It's its own game case. It's its own SKU. It's its own everything. It's its own story. It's its own mechanics. Yeah, they continued things, but like, how many video games are sequels not allowed to be in this then at this point? Like, it's really weird. So what I'm gonna say is I'm from the old school. I loved it when they made a game, shipped it out, and if it fucking sucked, it fucking sucked. You could not fix it. you
right.
have to live with how it sucked for the rest of your days. Now we live in an age where you can ship a game, and if it sucks, you can make it better, right? And I'm not saying Elden Ring sucked. Elden Ring won Game of the Year. But for them to release content for it and then have it nominated again tells me two things. One, it was a shitty year for video games because I feel like they didn't have a lot to choose from. Like, honestly,
there's people like RGT85 that think we've had a horrible year.
Yeah, that's right. And when he said that, what I just said, that's kind of where I watched his video and I realized.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I think he's right. Like, it's not that it's been a shitty year. I've had a great time with the games I've played that came out this year, but like, nothing crazy happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like at least not a lot. So,
right,
I understand that, but also like, you could have taken Elden Ring out and put in Silent Hill 2. You could have taken Elden Ring out and put in Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Maybe not. If you didn't want to do that, you could have put in Stellar Blade. You could have put in a lot of other things that I think are worthy in their own right to be here, because you have things like Balatro in here. Balatro is the indie pick. And I've never talked about it on the show, Chris. I fucking love Balatro.
Oh, no shit. You're a Balatro guy.
I love Balatro. I don't talk about it because in my mind, I play it on my phone and I don't talk mobile gaming a lot here. Mm-hmm. But so I forget that it came out for consoles. But like I bought it for $12.99 when it came out on the phone, because in my head I was like, this looks intriguing, but like I don't see myself playing it on anything. But when they said it was coming to phones, I was like, you know what? I'll get it there. I'm easily 80 hours into this fucking
What?
thing. It is addicting. It's a loop. It's my favorite roguelike.
Wow.
There you go. I found one. It's this one. Cool spin on poker. So I understand why it's here. I feel like unless you've played it, you don't get it. But if you've played it, you understand why it's here. Everything else in this list is its own thing. People are saying Final Fantasy VII Rebirth shouldn't be here because it's technically a remake. No, it's not a remake anymore. This is its own thing at this point. This is its own beast. Even if it was Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was more of a remake for the original game, it's still a completely different game. 100%. And in my opinion, I think I accept remakes as Game of the Years because those tend to be completely new things. Even if it's like mechanic wise, gameplay wise, graphic wise, it always tends to be a very big jump from what it was. Remasters I don't accept. I don't think, like, I loved Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. I don't expect it to make this because it's a remaster of a GameCube game. Nothing really is different about it other than graphics.
Too close to the source.
Too close to the source. So here it's like, if you really want to make a direct comparison, when Cyberpunk came out and it was a piece of shit and everyone hated it, and then they made that big DLC that everyone loved, and all of a sudden everyone loved it again. Why didn't that get nominated for Game of the Year that year?
Right.
It didn't.
Right.
It didn't. So why is this different?
Right.
I don't understand that.
I think here's the thing. These game awards, like, I go on the
They don't care. They don't matter.
Right. I go onto YouTube, I check the columns, and these awards are handed out basically 90%. There's a board, and on that board, have you looked at the people on the board? It's like IGN, there's like a bunch of other people, like the kind of funnies on there. And even listening to Kind of Funny, there's guys on Kind of Funny that are like, I will not be voting this year because I feel like I didn't play enough of the games. Blah, blah. I'm like, that's perfect. That's actually pretty responsible. Like, why would you just cast your vote for 1 out of or 2 out of 5 games that you haven't played the other 3? You know what I mean? Yeah. But all of this is just... you hate to say it and sound like a goober, but a lot of it is marketing, right? This is a giant marketing vehicle with the commercials and everything else. And you have these companies that they appoint to give 90% of these votes. And then I think they do 10%. There's like a fan vote or something like that. Doesn't really mean anything, right? So at the end of the day, it's all the perception of a small section of the video game market. However, it has a huge impact on how these games are perceived. It's got a huge impact on sales and things of that nature. So I understand why it's important. I understand why people get sort of up in arms. But yeah, no. What I was going to say, though, is if this is a changing of the guard where, let's just say Elden Ring wins. They win best game of the year, right? Following up on the 22 win. Then stay consistent. Yeah. Then the next time there is, a Cyberpunk, which, by the way, also had a really, really good DLC that came out last year. What was the name of that DLC?
Phantom Liberty?
Something like that. I believe that's the one. Yeah. And it was
Liberty,
critically acclaimed and stuff like that.
Idris Elba was in.
Why didn't that win? Why didn't that get nominated for Game of the Year, So a lot of this stuff is just, it's different for everybody, right? Like, it should a 12-hour game be nominated for Game of the Year, right? Versus a 150-hour game. Is it the same thing? I think you're never going to make everybody happy, but me personally, like, I don't care how big the DLC is. I can respect it based on what you just said right there. It's a substantial DLC and it's big and you need to be a certain amount of the game in, you got to meet certain criteria. I understand all that. But I personally don't like the idea of a DLC getting nominated. Now, again, let's just pretend Elden Ring never came out. Go back to 2022. Right. Elden Ring never came out. Dude, if you start looking, it's kind of a desert. At least on this side. You start looking, you're like, where are all the big game releases? If you don't count Elden Ring, then you might have maybe... What would people have gone nuts for? A Stellar Blade, Would the Final Fantasy Rebirth, would that have gone even more hype because there was nothing else there. I don't know, maybe not. I just know that a lot of new games that came out after Elden Ring were like, it's great, but not as good as Elden Ring. And it just became like the comparison, right? It became the comparison for all games like that, right? So, I mean, I don't know. My opinion on the DLC, or regardless of size, it shouldn't be nominated for Game of the Year. That's insane.
No, because it's building on a base that was already there.
Yeah, you're building on a base. You're going up against another studio who only had one drop, and they had to put all their focus on that one drop to create a game from the ground up. You went in and used things that already existed in your world, and you just added to it, which is great. I'm sure there was a lot of work, but the infrastructure was there already, right? It would be the same if I saw, FC24 get nominated for Game of the Year. Which would never happen. And maybe that's a bad example because I know that game changed some things, but tit for tat, those games are all basically the same going back, not forever, but at least going back 10, 15 years now of just the same game. And the NHL games are exactly the same way. So I wouldn't expect it in the same way. I would disqualify this. I wouldn't have them win.
Yeah. I don't know. If it was its own thing, if Shadow of the Erdtree was the Elden Ring sequel, that changes everything because now it had its own budget. More people would know about it. It would be a bigger deal than it is. Like, unless you played Elden Ring and loved it, you don't give a shit about this. Shadow of the Erdtree isn't going to make you pick up Elden Ring.
Right.
Shadow of the Erdtree is for people that picked up Elden Ring. So like, I get that. Like now it's in this, and what you said before is totally true. It's a marketing thing. Now people are going to be more exposed to Elden Ring. Maybe this will make them go pick it up, right? Maybe it will, but that's not fair. That's not fair to other games that came out this year that could have been in the same spot. Like this game was already here before. It already won this award. It's not fair. You can't just fucking put your hat back in there. I think Silent Hill 2 would have been the ideal choice to replace this, only because Silent Hill 2 is in so many other categories.
Right.
And then it's like, it's just gone. It's just gone from Game of the Year. It just doesn't matter anymore. It's not real.
Yeah.
So
it should be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it'll get the nod, but we'll see. When does this come out? December 12th is when these games Game Awards happen.
Yeah.
They have another category called Best Ongoing Game. Why not put it in there?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I know their definition of ongoing game is a little bit different. Like the nominees are Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, Diablo 4, and Destiny 2. So I understand that we're putting DLC. You're comparing it to a free to play in a lot of these cases, or a lot of these games are massive multiplayer online games. So they're constantly ongoing. I get all that. But then create another award, Best DLC. Is there a Best DLC trophy?
No, and that's what they should do.
Right.
At this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And I think you just have to make it fair for a lot of these players. There should be Best Debut Game so that you have a brand new, studio that's launched a first game and it's not going up against, 17 years of Final Fantasy, right? So there's a little bit of that, but obviously these video game awards, they're big marketing vehicles, and it's meant to create buzz, and it's meant to have knuckleheads like you and I, do podcasts on this stuff and spend time on it, and that's all great. But if you're going to do an award show on a proper award show, you're always going to get criticized no matter what. But if you want to be proper, at least be consistent. You got to be consistent. That's all.
I kind of wish this was totally fan driven. I wish the fan vote counted for more. The Golden Joysticks just happened, and that is totally fan votes, right? Like that is the Game of the Year over there was Wukong, Black Myth Wukong, and I understand that one because it sold like crazy. Like it was a big hit, right? Like the casuals definitely know that game because of the way it sold. So I understand why it would win Game of the Year. Final Fantasy and Astrobot won everything else. Best audio direction, best music, best action game, best RPG. Like it was but it didn't win Game of the Year. But again, that's all fan voted, so that makes sense. This one, it's like Balatro might win best indie game, but it'll lose best debut indie game. That makes no sense. It's all because they want to spotlight Animal Well, for example, so that they both get time to shine on the stage, so that people can go buy both of the games. It's like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. So, I mean, I said it before. I only watch this for the announcements. I just want to know, what are they going to show at this thing? I don't care for the awards at this because they don't mean anything really. But, if you want to talk about the awards, that's kind of the nitty gritty of it. Like, they don't matter. And I usually do, like last year for the Game Awards, I did an episode where I did the voting. Like, I voted for all the categories and what I thought would win. And I was pretty damn close, I remember. And I didn't vote off personal preference. I voted on what I thought was going to win based on information that I've gathered throughout the year. And I was right. And for a lot of it. And it was like, this is the same thing. Like, I already know who's going to win, like, best family game. That's going to be like Mario Party or like Astrobot, because Astrobot's in there. If it's Game of the Year nominated, then it has to win all the other categories. Like, if you really think about it, it wouldn't make sense not to win that category.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's very weird, but, I'll tune in. But again, for the announcements.
Same. Me too. Yeah.
If you guys like this video, be sure to check out the rest of the channel and consider subscribing. Go even further and subscribe to Podcast Fresh wherever you listen to your podcasts for new episodes every week.